Can you turn a pile of garbage into a family treasure? I'm talking about a piece of furniture so nice, so solid, that your grandkids might fight over it someday. That sounds expensive, right? Like you need a fancy workshop and a truck full of premium lumber. But what if I told you you could build a stunning heirloom for less than the cost of a new video game console? What if the main ingredients were sitting in a dumpster right now, just waiting for a second chance? That's the challenge I set for myself. I wanted to see if it was possible to create something amazing, something with a real story, using only junk wood and a tiny budget. This meant every purchase had to be carefully considered. No fancy tools, no exotic hardware, just the bare essentials to turn forgotten fragments into a functional work of art. This project is about more than saving money. It's about proving value isn't always tied to a price tag. Sometimes the most precious things have the best stories. A ding in the wood isn't a flaw, it's a chapter from a previous life. A mismatched grain pattern isn't a mistake, it's a reminder of how different pieces came together to create something new. Throughout this journey, I'll show you every step, every mistake, every little victory. We're going to get our hands dirty and try to turn one person's trash into another person's treasure. So, the mission is clear. Build a piece that looks like it costs $2,000 but is made from literal garbage. The final piece must be strong, beautiful, and worthy of being passed down through generations. It's a test of creativity, resourcefulness, and a little bit of elbow grease. Can it be done? The first phase of this project felt like a treasure hunt. But instead of a map, my guide was the city's weekly trash schedule. My first stop was a local cabinet shop, Artisan Woodworks on Elm Street. These places are gold mines. They work with high-quality hardwoods, often end up with small offcuts that are perfect for us. I talked to the owner, explained my project, and he pointed me to a bin out back. I found some beautiful, albeit short, pieces of maple and a few strips of dark walnut. A quick tap with my knuckle gave a solid, resonant sound, not a dull thud, which is a good sign. Next, I headed to a new home construction site on the edge of town. These sites are fantastic for finding larger structural pieces. I made sure to ask the site foreman for permission before I went dumpster diving. Safety first, always. Here, I was looking for discarded framing lumber, like 2x4s and 2x6s. Most of it was cheap pine, but I found some long Douglas fir beams that had been cut incorrectly. They were dirty and full of nails, but they were straight and solid. I ran my hand along the edge to feel for warping. A little curve is okay and can be flattened, but a major twist is a deal breaker. I loaded up the car, feeling like I'd just robbed a wood bank. My third stop was the most unpredictable: residential curb alerts. I spent an afternoon driving through neighborhoods on bulk trash day. I saw a lot of broken particle board furniture, which is a hard pass for an heirloom project. But then I saw it. An old, broken-down, solid oak pallet. Not the cheap pine pallets, but a heavy-duty one made from real oak. It was weathered and gray, but I knew that beneath that tired surface was some beautiful, strong wood. I did a quick check for any stamps that might say MB for methyl bromide. This one was stamped HT for heat treated, which is perfectly safe. After a few days of hunting, I had a respectable hoard of mismatched lumber: the maple, the walnut, the fir beams, the weathered oak. Each piece was like a rescue animal, a little rough around the edges but full of potential. The variety was both a challenge and an opportunity. I didn't have enough of any single type of wood to build the entire piece, which meant I would have to get creative. The wood itself would now dictate the design, forcing a level of creativity that, starting with a perfect stack of lumber, just can't inspire. With my garage now looking like a wood recycling center, it was time to move from scavenger to designer. My original idea was to build a simple modern console table, but my haul of scrap wood had other plans. A single wood design was out. This piece would have to be a mosaic, a patchwork quilt made of wood. The fir beams were strong and straight, perfect for the main frame. The oak slats, once cleaned up, could be laminated into a rustic top, and the small, precious hardwood blocks would be perfect for the front, a dramatic patterned door. This is the magic of scrap wood builds. You don't force a design onto the wood. You let the wood guide you to the design. Now for the fun part, making sawdust. The first step was to turn my rough lumber into usable boards. This is where a little bit of cheating comes in. I had access to a few key power tools: planer, table saw. If you don't have these, check a local makerspace or community workshop. I ran the fir beams through the planer to get 2 flat, parallel faces. That's crucial for square, strong joints. I left the other 2 sides rough to preserve their history. It was messy and loud, sawdust filling the air. With the structural pieces milled, it was time to cut and join. For the frame, I used a half lap joint. Cut away half the thickness from each end. Overlap them and they fit flush, making a strong corner. I marked cuts carefully with a square. Watching 2 imperfect pieces fit together is satisfying. I used generous wood glue and clamped them tight, then let them dry overnight. While the frame dried, I moved to the oak pallet wood for the top. It was a serious cleanup job. I was careful not to sand away the aged gray patina. The goal was clean, not new. Once the slats were clean, I arranged them in a pattern. I glued the slats edge to edge into one panel. I used every clamp I owned. This stage is all about patience. You can't rush glue. You can't rush a good fit. For every minute of cutting, 10 minutes were spent measuring, checking, and rechecking. If the build has a hero, it's wood glue. But if it has a villain, it's sanding. Welcome to the messy middle, the part of the project that requires the most patience and produces the most dust. I started with around 80 grit to smooth imperfections and level the joints, using a random orbit sander for the big flats. Mask and eye protection non-negotiable. Before moving to finer grits, I had to deal with the flaws. Some, like the nail holes in the oak top, I wanted to keep for character, but others, like a deep gouge in one of the fir legs, needed to be addressed. I used simple wood filler and also made my own from fine sawdust and glue. After filling, the real sanding marathon began. From 80 to 120 to 180, and finally to a silky smooth 220 grit. Your fingers are far more sensitive than your eyes and can detect any roughness you might have missed. This stage is a true test of endurance. It's not glamorous. Your arms get tired, your workshop gets covered in a layer of fine powder. But then, you wipe away the dust, and you see it. The wood's natural beauty starts to emerge. The grain patterns pop. The transition between the different types of wood becomes a smooth, touchable line. This is where the piece transforms from a rough construction into a refined piece of furniture. The hard work pays off, and you're finally ready for the most satisfying step of all, the finish. With the sanding finally complete, it was time for the magic trick, applying the finish. This is the moment when the wood's true colors and depth are revealed. For this heirloom piece, I wanted a finish that was both durable and natural looking. I decided against a thick, plastic-like polyurethane. Instead, I chose a hard wax oil finish. I poured a small amount onto a clean, lint-free rag and began rubbing it into the wood, moving with the grain. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The pale, dusty maple turned a warm honey gold. The dark walnut strips became a deep, rich chocolate brown. The old gray oak showed shades of amber and caramel. I applied a generous coat, let it soak in for about 20 minutes, and then wiped off all the excess. While the first coat cured, I turned to the hardware. I couldn't afford fancy handles, so I used simple matte black hinges and made a walnut knob from a leftover block. I drilled a hole, sanded it smooth, and gave it the same oil finish. Sometimes the best hardware is the hardware you make yourself. After 24 hours, a very light sanding with 400 grit and a second coat. This deepens the color and adds protection, that professional, silky smooth feel. The hard wax oil was $40, sandpaper $15, hinges $8. We were still well under budget, and here it is, the final piece. What started as a pile of dirty, forgotten scraps is now a solid, beautiful cabinet. The Douglas fir frame provides a sturdy, rustic base. The top, made from that old oak pallet, is full of character, and the door, with its geometric pattern, light maple, dark walnut, is the undeniable star of the show. It looks, feels, and is substantial. Let's talk numbers. My total spending came in at $168, including a $30 makerspace planer fee. That's it. Similar solid wood cabinets range from $1,500 to well over $2,500. We built this for a tiny fraction of that cost, and honestly, this piece has more character than any of them. But the real value isn't in the cost comparison. It's in the story. I can point to the top and say, this came from a pallet I found on the side of the road on Oak Street. I can touch the leg and remember pulling nails from that construction site fir. This piece has a history baked into its very grain, and now it's ready to start a new history with my family. This is what makes an heirloom. I hope this inspires you to look at that pile of scrap wood differently. You don't need a huge budget or a fancy workshop, just curiosity, a willingness to get your hands dirty, and the vision to see the treasure hiding in the trash. This project was a blast, and it's proof you can build your own family heirlooms.